The sun had barely risen over the jagged peaks of the Crimson Range when Eldric, a seasoned miner, led a group of 4 men to the edge of the Whispering Ravine. The group had heard tales of the ravine's hidden depths, concealing riches beyond imagination. But these were no ordinary treasures. Legends spoke of veins of pure onyx and sapphires that shimmered like starlight. Eldric's team consisted of Aiden, a wiry man with an uncanny sense for finding ore; Calder, a brawny ex-soldier with a penchant for carving paths through even the toughest terrain; Mirek, the youngest, whose curiosity often outpaced his caution; and Lothar, a brooding scholar who studied the ancient texts and maps that had guided them here. Standing at the ravine's edge, Lothar unrolled a tattered map. "The entrance is marked here," he said, pointing to an etched X near a bend in the cliffs. "But the warnings in the text are clear. Only the bold may pass." Eldric smirked. "Warnings are for fools who don't know their own strength. Let's find this entrance." The descent. The group tied ropes to a sturdy outcrop and began their descent. The walls of the ravine were steep and treacherous, forcing them to rely on their gear and teamwork. As they reached a narrow ledge, Mirek spotted faint carvings in the rock. "Look at this," he said, brushing away dust to reveal ancient symbols. Lothar knelt beside him, his brow furrowing. "These symbols are warnings. Beware the shadow beneath the mountain." Calder laughed. "Shadows don't scare me. Let's keep moving." The ledge led to a cavernous opening, where the air grew cool and damp. Their torchlight illuminated a massive stone door carved with intricate designs. At its center was a hand-shaped indentation. "It's a mechanism," Aiden said, examining it closely. Without hesitation, Eldric pressed his hand into the indentation. The door groaned and slid open, revealing a tunnel that seemed to descend endlessly. "Stay close," Eldric said, taking the lead. The first trial. As they ventured deeper, the walls of the tunnel grew smoother, as if polished by unseen hands. They came upon a circular chamber with 5 pathways branching out in different directions. "This isn't on the map," Lothar said, studying the room. At the center of the chamber was a pedestal with a bowl filled with shimmering liquid. A plaque beside it read, "The path forward requires clarity of vision. Choose wisely, or be lost forever." "What does that mean?" Mirek asked, peering into the bowl. "It's a test," Lothar said. "We have to figure out which path is safe." Aiden dipped his finger into the liquid and touched it to his forehead. His eyes widened as he looked at the pathways. "The liquid, it reveals symbols above the doors." The others followed suit, and glowing markings appeared over the entrances. 4 bore a faint red X, while 1 had a green circle. "That's our path," Eldric said, leading them through the marked tunnel. The echoing depths. The tunnel sloped downward, and the air grew colder. Strange echoes accompanied their footsteps, as if something unseen moved with them. "Does anyone else feel like we're being watched?" Mirek whispered. "Stay focused," Calder said, gripping his pickaxe. They entered a vast cavern filled with towering stalagmites. At its center was a crystal-clear pool, its surface reflecting the light of their torches. "This must be the heart of the ravine," Lothar said, awestruck. Aiden approached the pool, his eyes scanning the shimmering water. "There's something at the bottom," he said, pointing to a faint glimmer. Eldric knelt beside him. "Let's see what we're dealing with." As they leaned closer, the water rippled, and a shadowy figure emerged, a humanoid shape with glowing eyes and limbs that seemed to waver like smoke. "Back away!" Lothar shouted, pulling them back. The figure spoke in a voice that seemed to echo from the walls. "Who dares disturb the shadow's sanctuary?" "We seek the treasures hidden within these depths," Eldric said, his voice steady. The figure laughed, a hollow sound. "Riches come at a price. Prove your worth, or face oblivion. The trial of strength." The figure raised a hand, and the ground beneath them shifted. Pillars of stone rose from the pool, forming a series of platforms. To claim what you seek, one must traverse the pillars and retrieve the gem atop the highest, the figure said. But beware, the shadows will test you. Calder stepped forward. I'll do it. He leaped onto the first pillar, his balance unwavering. As he moved to the second, the shadows around him began to writhe and take shape, forming beasts with glowing eyes. They're illusions, Lothar said. Stay focused. Calder swung his pickaxe at the nearest shadow, which dissipated with a shriek. He continued his ascent, his movements precise despite the growing number of shadowy foes. Reaching the final pillar, he grabbed the glowing gem and raised it triumphantly. The shadows retreated, and the platforms sank back into the pool. You have passed the trial of strength, the figure said, but your journey is not yet complete. The maze of memories. The next tunnel led to a labyrinth carved into the stone. Its walls were covered in murals depicting scenes of joy, sorrow, and conflict. This is the maze of memories, Lothar said, his voice tinged with unease. It's designed to disorient and test our resolve. As they navigated the maze, the murals seemed to come alive, replaying moments from their pasts. Eldric saw his younger self mining with his father, their laughter echoing through the chamber. Aiden relived the moment he found his first gold vein, the thrill of discovery washing over him. But not all memories were pleasant. Mirek froze before a mural showing a childhood tragedy, his face pale. We can't let the past distract us, Calder said, pulling him forward. Stay focused. After what felt like hours, they found an exit marked by a glowing symbol. The final guardian. Beyond the maze lay the final chamber, a vast hall filled with treasure. At its center was a massive obsidian statue of a warrior, its hands resting on a colossal sword. This is it, Eldric said, his eyes gleaming. As they stepped into the chamber, the statue's eyes glowed, and it came to life, blocking their path. Prove your unity, it said in a deep, resonant voice. The ground trembled as the statue swung its sword, forcing them to scatter. We have to work together, Lothar shouted. Calder distracted the statue, dodging its massive strikes, while Aiden searched for a weak point. Eldric and Mirek climbed onto its back, using their pickaxes to chip away at its armor. Lothar studied the inscriptions on the walls and shouted, Strike its core! It's in its chest! With a coordinated effort, they brought the statue to its knees. Calder delivered the final blow, shattering the core. The statue crumbled, and the chamber fell silent. The true treasure. As the dust settled, the group approached the treasure. Amidst the gold and jewels was a pedestal holding a simple, glowing crystal. This is the true treasure, Lothar said, holding the crystal. It's a source of knowledge and power, not just wealth. They divided the gold among themselves, but agreed to leave the crystal untouched. It's too dangerous to take, Eldric said. Some things are better left where they belong. The return. The journey back was grueling, but they emerged from the ravine with their lives and newfound respect for its challenges. Back in their village, they used their riches to improve the lives of those around them, ensuring their adventure benefited more than just themselves. The ravine's secrets remained hidden, a testament to the bravery and unity of the men who dared to explore it. The sun had just begun its ascent, casting long shadows over the bustling city of Eldwind. Tucked away in a secluded corner of the city stood a forgotten tavern known as the Silent Accord. The tavern was no longer operational. Its creaky doors remained closed to the public, and its windows were coated in years of dust. Yet it wasn't abandoned. Beneath the unassuming facade, 5 men gathered, bound by a purpose far greater than the mundanities of life. Ewan, the group's leader, was a stoic man with a chiseled face and eyes that seemed to pierce through any facade. Beside him sat Garth, a blacksmith whose hands bore the calluses of countless hours forging steel. Leaning against the wall was Ivor, a hunter whose quiet demeanor often concealed his sharp instincts. Across the room were Milo, a wiry tinkerer always fiddling with strange contraptions, and Cedric, a former scholar turned wanderer, his knowledge as vast as the libraries he used to frequent. They were not a gang, nor a secret society. Instead, they were united by a singular mission: to retrieve the stolen solstice keystone, a relic said to maintain the balance of their world seasons. Without it, winter had extended unnaturally, freezing crops and plunging villages into despair. The meeting begins. "The relic's been moved," Ewan began, his gravelly voice breaking the silence. He placed a parchment map on the table, the corners weighted down by small stones. "Our informant says it's now in the vault of Faerowyn." Garth let out a low whistle. "That's no simple vault. The King's Guard watches it day and night." "Not just the guard," Cedric added. "The vault is said to be enchanted. It won't open without the right sequence of actions." "That's where I come in," Milo said, smirking as he spun a small gear in his hands. "I've been working on something that might bypass those enchanted mechanisms." Ewan looked at Ivor, who nodded. "Scouted the perimeter 2 nights ago. There's a weak spot near the east wall, but it's heavily patrolled. We'll need a distraction." "Then it's settled," Ewan said. "We move at dusk tomorrow. Everyone knows their role. We get in, retrieve the keystone, and leave no trace." The heist begins. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the men set out. The air was biting cold, their breaths visible in the frosty air. They reached the outskirts of Faerowyn unnoticed, their dark cloaks blending seamlessly with the shadows. Garth carried a large sack filled with tools, while Milo clutched a leather case containing his gadgetry. Ivor, as always, carried his trusty bow and a quiver of arrows. Cedric had a small satchel filled with scrolls and vials, while Ewan carried a single blade, sharp and ready for whatever awaited them. Ivor signaled for the group to halt as they reached the east wall. "2 guards," he whispered, his eyes narrowing. "Changing shifts in 5 minutes." Ewan nodded. "Milo, set the distraction." Milo crouched, pulling a small device from his case. It resembled a metallic bird, its wings lined with tiny gears. He wound it up and released it into the air. The contraption flew silently toward the guard post, emitting a faint glow. As the guards spotted the mysterious light, they left their post to investigate. "Move," Ewan ordered. Garth used his tools to remove the loose stones Ivor had identified earlier, creating a narrow passage. One by one, they slipped through. Inside the vault. The interior of the vault was as grand as it was intimidating. Tall columns lined the main hall, their surfaces inscribed with ancient runes. At the far end of the hall stood a massive door, adorned with intricate carvings and glowing sigils. "That's our target," Cedric whispered, pointing to the door. Milo approached the door, studying its mechanisms. "Looks like a 4-tier lock system. Give me 10 minutes. As Milo worked, Ewan and Garth kept watch, while Ivor scouted ahead. Cedric examined the runes, his fingers tracing their patterns. "These runes are warnings," Cedric murmured. "They speak of traps, mechanical and magical." "Then let's hope Milo's as good as he says," Garth said, gripping his hammer tightly. Suddenly, a faint hum filled the air. Milo froze, his hands hovering over the lock. "Something's activating." Cedric's eyes widened. "It's a pressure ward. Don't move." The hum grew louder, and the air around them seemed to shimmer. Thinking quickly, Milo pulled out a small vial of shimmering liquid and poured it into the lock. The hum subsided. "Close call," Milo said, exhaling sharply. "Lock's almost done." The first challenge. When the door finally creaked open, the group entered a chamber bathed in an eerie blue light. At its center floated the solstice keystone, encased in a translucent orb. Surrounding it were 4 statues, each holding a weapon pointed at the orb. Cedric approached cautiously, reading the inscriptions on the statues. This is a balance test. The keystone can only be removed if the weight of the statue's weapons is equalized. How do we do that? Garth asked. We'll need to redistribute the weights, Cedric explained. Garth, take the axe from that statue and replace it with the hammer from the other. As they worked, the ground beneath them began to rumble. The statue's eyes glowed, and their stone limbs started to move. They're waking up, Ivor shouted, readying his bow. Keep going, Ewan barked. The men worked quickly, dodging the slow but powerful swings of the statues. When the last weapon was balanced, the statues froze, and the orb around the keystone vanished. Got it, Cedric said, grabbing the relic. The pursuit. Their success was short-lived. As they exited the chamber, an alarm echoed through the vault. Guards flooded the halls, their armor clinking loudly. Run! Ewan shouted. The group sprinted through the corridors, weaving through side passages and hidden tunnels. Ivor's arrows took down a few guards who got too close, while Milo used smoke bombs to obscure their trail. As they reached the eastern wall, Garth smashed through the remaining loose stones, creating an opening. They scrambled out, the sound of pursuing guards growing fainter as they disappeared into the night. The aftermath. By dawn, the group had returned to the silent accord. The keystone glowed faintly, its power palpable even from a distance. We did it, Ewan said, placing the relic on the table. Cedric nodded, his expression thoughtful. Now, we must return it to its rightful place at the Temple of Seasons. And how do we get past the temple's wardens? Milo asked. Leave that to me, Cedric said. I have connections there. The group agreed, their mission far from over. But for now, they allowed themselves a moment of rest, knowing they had taken the first step in restoring balance to their world. Epilogue. Days later, the keystone was returned to the temple, and the harsh winter began to thaw. The people of Eldwind celebrated the return of balance, unaware of the silent heroes who had risked everything to save them. For Ewan, Garth, Ivor, Milo, and Cedric, the journey had strengthened their bond, forging a brotherhood that would endure whatever challenges lay ahead.